how to network and stuff like that. Okay. So yeah, so overall, I have about 20 years of experience. I've spent a lot of time in human resources, primarily recruiting, sales, and marketing, and also consulting. I did some consulting work around PeopleSoft and so on. And I also was an entrepreneur. Only recently I took up a job about 2, 3 years back. So I started three companies. One was a e-learning product company way back, say in 2003 or so. It was too early for us to start, so we failed there, and then we moved on to start other two consulting companies. One was okay, we kind of we couldn't cash out. The third one we could have cashed out. It was very extremely successful. We built the company from zero to around 5 million, but we couldn't, say take it further anyway. So these were the three companies I kind of started, and then I've also worked in the past with companies like Siemens Communication Software, Infineon, Accenture, Tata Unisys, Mastech, and now Evalua. I also briefly worked as a PeopleSoft consultant. So if you see, it's a diversified exposure pretty much in all areas. I'll come to that. So overall, anyway, we discussed about this. We'll be talking together. The two of us will be talking about managing career transitions, exploring job opportunities, and learning how to market yourself. Okay, so say what is happening today is, if you look at the future of work, say digitalization and automation technologies have accelerated. More and more investments have gone in these areas, unlike the traditional verticals. So I'm giving you what is happening today and for the future, so that you know how to transition your career into, right. Some remote work is currently happening, but certainly it will change as time goes by. And for a lot of people, it would have changed permanently. They'll continue to work remotely. So when hiring for on-sites, especially companies which are in, let's say, pharmaceuticals and so on, or maybe not companies which are heavily dependent on remote work, they will have to go on-site. So more and more contractors and temporary workers will be hired. That is the assumption, at least for now, or at least in the next 2 years. So if you look at venture capital, right, I just wanted to show you some figures here so that you'll get a perspective of where the money is, right? So as engineers, or as people are looking for jobs, they should know where the money is flowing or where the investments are happening. If you look at it, say, although the economy is down, and at the same time, plenty of people are without jobs, still money is getting invested. Say tons and tons of people are, as I would say, VCs are investing. If you look at it from the 2016 onwards, although it went down and then went up again, so it's kind of steady. I won't claim that it is very high, but certainly it is much better than even 2013, 2014, and so on. Then same is the case with investments around. If you look at it, the technology growth, you see, the last, uh, you call it the pyramid or whatever you call it. No, it's the pie chart, right? So the last one, you see that there is more and more investment in technologies, unlike the traditional industry. So you'll see that more and more money is being spent. Approximately 250 to 300 billion is being spent, say every year. And when it comes to angel investment, that is what you need to be interested in, because these are all small startups where potentially, you will get jobs versus very experienced people. Usually in small companies, what happens is the top management are all very experienced people, and they end up hiring a lot of people at very junior level so that they get the opportunity to grow. So you should also look at, say, companies which are really very small. If you look at the number of or the investments that have happened, it is not bad at all. It has gone down, but it's not bad at all. So potentially there are more and more jobs that are coming up. But you should bear one thing in mind, that um, the investments that have happened in the last 4 or 5 years is all showing up now in terms of hiring. So it's very, very hot today. The overall job market today for experienced people is very hot. The reason being, companies are continuing to hire or use their previous investments that they had in continuing to hire more people, because of the fact that more and more, say people are available today is what their logic is. But otherwise, say I see the market is really very hot now. This is something which I wanted to show from the early stage investment through Q2 2020. It has stayed steady if you really look at it, right? So why did I give this information? I gave this information for you to know that, well, not everything is negative. There is more money out there that people are willing to invest, and there are more jobs that are getting created. So you don't have to be very, say, concerned about it. Okay, sooner or later you'll certainly land jobs. Okay, so if one thing you have to take home today from this presentation is you need to know this one very, very well. What I do well, meaning, say whatever you are really very good at, and what people pay for, and what I want to do, all these things, say are coinciding in one place. That is exactly what you should nail. Meaning, if you are good at something, just go after that. And believe me, there are a lot of jobs out there, right? As an example, I'm telling you, let's say if you want to become a software developer, look at the things that you need to do. So it is very important that you nail exactly what you really want to do. Then other things will fall in place. Like, say you have to create a plan, be good at multiple things that I've listed out here, programming languages to designing, coding to, database knowledge and tons of it. As you focus on each one of them, that expands. So which means that, you will be spending a lot of time um, learning and growing in these areas. But time being very limited, you need to kind of nail the area that you want to focus on. If you don't, then you'll be squandering your time, and and you'll not be able to kind of, say, focus on anything, right? You'll be a wandering generality, not worth it. Now, so these are the growth areas I'm seeing. Pretty much most of the hiring, is happening in these areas. So what you need to do is, say you need to focus on um, areas that you're strong at and superimpose some of what I've listed here. For example, if you are an optimization engineer, as an example, right? So that is outside of, you think that, that is outside of these areas, but in actuality, some of big data work, some of machine learning work, some of, say cloud technologies, DevOps and so on, are superimposed on the optimization engineer role, right? So these are the areas where maximum investments are going on. So you will have to somehow, identify your skill or your what is it, strength in one of these areas, and then superimpose on the area that you want to specialize in. Okay, some of the emerging technologies are continuing to be blockchain, IoT, and so on. So programming languages, I would strongly urge you to leave out everything and focus on these 4 or 5 areas. Everywhere I see, every job opportunity I see is pretty much around these. When I say JavaScript, that includes front end and so on and so forth, whereas core Java includes back end and server side development. So still solid Java developers are in great demand. I am not in a position to get solid .NET C# guys today. So which means that that is also in great demand. And I've just added R there because of the fact that statistical analysis and various other areas around statistics is also in demand, right? But the first four are very critical. When it comes to vertical industries, right? These are the four vertical industries where maximum investments are going on. There are subsets of this. For example, if you look at pharma and life sciences, some of investments are going into, let us say, drug development or drug discovery and so on, right? but these are traditional industries. But overall, you need to figure out that investments are not going elsewhere, but in these four areas. Okay. Then again, I want to repeat some of the languages and skills which are in demand. Okay. Then, okay, so let's talk about, say how to find a job, right? I'm sure these are some of the questions that you might have. But facts are job opportunities are still limited. Unemployment, as you know, if you read the newspapers or if you read any blogs, you'll see that unemployment is really very high. But it has gone down in the last 4 5 months. I would say at least it has come down to less than 10%. Companies are generally cutting down costs, but not cutting down costs for hiring good people. There is always a demand, and many companies, as you know, are losing money. But say since you are all pretty much in the IT field, those companies are continuing to invest. So it will have a snowballing effect, but you don't have to really be too concerned about say getting jobs as you explore new opportunities and so on. But economy will never be the same again. It will certainly change big time, and that is something that you need to be very, very closely watching. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is create a solid LinkedIn profile. Okay, if you really have to find a job, and I know that say this is reputation, this is something that you already know, but I want to get into some finer aspects of what it takes to find a job, because everyone, even when you want to reach out to somebody, these people will look at your LinkedIn profile. So you have to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is really solid. One thing is, say no sunglasses, say cut and pasting from something else and so on. Make sure that you spend the time, or sorry, you spend the effort in getting a good profile photo. So it is important. No picture at all is not acceptable. You have to have a picture, and ideally a pleasant background, and other things that I mentioned, like good background context and so on. So you have to mention a few things there: open to new opportunities, so that people know that you're actually looking. You also can mention what kind of roles are you looking for. That comes from the first slide one of the slides that I showed you. Once you know exactly what you're looking for, that is the kind of stuff that you need to mention there. And add profile section also there. I think there is an option for you to add a profile section, something about yourself and your location preference. So these are all mandatory things that people are looking for. Okay, so also in your LinkedIn profile, so write a short summary which will also have something important in life. Say maybe if you're good at something, mention that, because that people look at it and that will remain in their heads. So it is important that you for example, if you're a damn good coder, or if you have a special interest in something, mention that. It is very important. Okay, and then if contact information somehow you can mention LinkedIn, please mention that, because people look for, if they like your profile, they want to contact you first. If they can get your contact information immediately, that is when they pick up the phone and call. And what else? Keywords, skills, job title. These are all things that you need to take care of in your resume. We'll come to that a little later. Okay. So resume update, right? So here is another thing that you need to pay a lot of attention when it comes to resume. I'm sure there is a format that you probably adopt, and most people have a one-page resume, right? But try and pack as much as possible in the resume, which is impacting, not say reputation, not quantifying stuff, not trying to fill in one page and so on. Weak action verbs need to be just removed. Instead, action verbs, right? Because don't mention nouns and so on. I'm talking about verbs because it's action verbs. It leads to people thinking that, say you need to, you're active, right? That's what matters a lot. Then resume length, make sure that it is as small as possible, meaning it's just 2 pages is good enough. In your case, probably you're all fresh graduates, so 1 page is more than enough, right? And then also make sure that you don't have too many bullet points and too many bullets everywhere, right? So just make sure that it is readable, easily understandable, and so on. And remove buzzwords. Don't put too many buzzwords. Otherwise, it will become too dense and people don't understand all that stuff. And repetition also is something that you need to avoid. Then you can also mention anything that you're good at around soft skills. Mostly people mention about communication, their analytical skills, then problem solving skills and teamwork and people skills and so on. So three top skills, that is something that you need to make sure you have in your resume. If you don't have it, people are looking for those three top skills. When I look at a profile, or any recruiter looks at a profile, for them the time that they spend on every resume is just about 15 seconds, or at best 30 seconds max. Okay, in 15 seconds, if you're not in a position to communicate that these are the three top skills that you have, there will be no further interest. So once these three top skills are identified, then a recruiter spends more time in understanding, what you're good at and what your job profile is, or what you're looking for, and so on. So when it comes to job description, just make it 2 or 3 lines maximum. Responsibility is also about 6 bullets max. Education, list your highest education first, and then it can percolate down. And certifications, I would say these days it's very, very important. Whatever important certifications that you have acquired, please list them. And resume summary also, just 3 lines, 3, 4 lines at best. So when you're searching jobs, right? So I know that, say nobody's going to hand you a job on a platter. So you have to do the work. Use Boolean strings to find where the opportunities are. Filter on title, and the best thing that I can tell you is network, network, network. Right? You have to network with a ton of people. It's very, very important. Let me tell you a few things about networking. Don't hesitate to think that, say somebody is not going to respond to you and so on. Your job is to reach out to people. Don't worry about, whether you're going to get a response or not. So many a time, this is what happens when you apply for 500 jobs, only 5 people respond or 10 people respond. Or when you reach out to 50 people, only 2 or 3 people respond. But the key is to identify those people who are in your interest area and then network with them. It's not about, random people. You have to network. It doesn't really help. Let us say you want to get into, let us say, I gave you an example of optimization engineer. So you need to figure out what tools an optimization engineer uses, and probably identify those people who have been using those tools extensively and who are very, very experienced. And then you look at their profile and try and network with them, right? And send them emails, write a nice, good email. That matters a lot. Personalize those emails. That is what I've listed down below. So personalized emails, it matters a lot. Say that makes a big impact. I have experienced it 1,000 times when I reach out to people who are even at the CEO or VP level. I read their blogs, or I see the news items or wherever they've appeared and so on, and then quote them. Or if there is a podcast that I listen to, I quote their podcast and write something about the podcast that they have spoken about, and then make it much more personalized. I know it takes a little bit of time. Believe me, that makes a big difference. Random emails and, say standard templates will not work. Okay, so if you have any videos that you can make for 30 seconds or 1 minute or even 2 minutes about yourself, please make sure that you have some videos made, and then you can send videos also to the recruiter. Okay, and I also talk about appealing subject line because people get attracted by just one single line information about say yourself. And when you're also looking for jobs, you can also look for jobs on the same lines, right? And when you reach out to anyone, try and see if you can follow up after 2 or 3 days. Many a time people, as we all have done it and we do it time and again, uh, we forget, right? So it's important that you follow up so that they come back to you potentially. Then preparing for a remote job interview is a little different from what you are used to, let's say in-person interview and phone interviews and so on. So this is something that you need to practice amongst yourselves. So please do that, right? Okay. So I'll run through this very quickly. Um, so the more prospects you have, the bigger pipeline you have, right? You have to have a solid pipeline of people whom you are reaching out to. So as I said, don't hesitate. If you're reaching out to 50 people in a week, you probably have to increase it to 75 or 80 people. But they should all be in your domain area, and try and measure them and track them, which means that, let's say if you've sent 50 emails, how many people have responded, how many people are interested in talking to you, and so on. So that is one way of measuring, so that you know where you're heading. And work directly with a recruiter if possible. Many a time, these things don't happen because it goes into cold storage. But if you can connect with the recruiter and connect and send the resume directly, that will really help. Another important thing I can tell you is about the target companies, right? So let us say you are a security architect, not a security architect, but if you want to get into security area, uh, you have to identify about 100, 200 companies in this area, and then go after those companies. They should know that you have a background, you have done enough research, and at the same time you're reaching out to only those people who are in the security area, and you have certifications to back up, and you have the education background to back up. So all these things will really, really help a lot, rather than posting your resume to random companies. It's not going to help. Okay. Be persistent, but use caution is what I'm saying. Some recruiters or some people get pissed off. So you have to be persistent, but at the same time you need to be using caution. um, so interview preparation, I'm sure you have faced a ton of interviews in the past, but if you have not faced enough, this is what you need to be doing, and that is what I've done, right? So you have to list at least 200 questions. Even if you don't know answers for, don't worry about it. So first list all the questions and make sure that you get all the answers from wherever you can, be it your friends, be it your professors, be it from books, be it from podcasts, be it from anywhere. Doesn't matter. Get the right answers and make sure that you rehearse again and again and again. Right? You ask the question yourself, stand in front of the mirror, and answer it yourself. Close the book, close your notes, and start answering yourself. That is when it gets embedded in your head. Say what also happens is, some questions that you have, right, may when you'll use some answers for different questions that come up, or you might have two, three answers which will be useful for one question that the interviewer asks. So the more answers that you have in your head, it is better for you to say handle the interview say much more confidently, right? So usually what happens in the interview process is there is there is more like a phone interview, and there's a professional screen, and many a time there are Zoom calls, multiple Zoom calls. There are technical interviews, non-technical interviews, and panel interviews, and code pairing interviews, and so on. So you need to be aware of all these things, right? And sometimes say personality tests also, and cultural fit. That is also something that people look at very seriously. So you need to figure out, say for professional screen, what potentially would be the set of questions that you might be facing. So it is better to ask the recruiter who has set up the interview for, right, to know who the interviewer is or what potential questions that might come up. Don't hesitate to ask. Ask. If they don't tell you, that's fine, but it's better to ask. So just in case you get into panel interviews, you should know who the panel is so that you mentally prepare and so on, right? And generally be on time, at least 5 minutes before. Dress code, make it say as informal as possible, meaning um, not a suit and all that stuff. It's not required in these days, but presentable and professional, right? And eye contact, very important. So since these are many a time, say these are Zoom calls, you will have to look at say them as closely as possible, so that you're not looking at let's say another screen or some notes. He or she thinks that say you're probably getting information from somewhere else. So make sure that you see face to face. And listening is very important, because people these days, say most companies are diverse today, which means that a French guy could be interviewing you, or somebody from, let's say, another country could be interviewing you, right? So you need to um, listen to the question very well. Otherwise, you'll be asking again and again. So that is not a good sign. And salary negotiation, make sure that you have this information at least a little ahead of time. Do your research either on the internet or ask your friends as to what the general salary trends are. And many times they would ask you, the interviewer would ask you what your expected salary is, and be bold. You tell them what exactly it is. Okay, don't worry about it. Okay. So I'll run through it. I think I'll skip this. Okay, so let me get to market yourself. Here, probably
Raj,
I'll focus
sorry
on
to interrupt. We have 1 minute. 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. So on this one, I would want to stress on be authentic. That is exactly what I can tell you. Say, be yourself. Don't fake it. It's not required, and so on. And then, well, I will share all these slides, so you don't have to worry about it. You can take a look at it once again. Then there are other websites like GitHub and so on. You need to be as active as possible. LinkedIn, certainly, as I told you, and also spend time if you can write blogs, write some articles on LinkedIn or Medium, which is a magazine, and focus on technical skills, sorry, non-technical skills and so on. So as an example, I can tell you, see, if you look at cloud engineering, look at the amount of work you need to do if you want to just get into a role as a cloud engineer. There are a lot of things that you need to learn, read, and so on. So here is another one, and I've also provided you with a lot of links, some job links, some resources, and so on. And
Raju, I'm so sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
But I just wanted to wrap it up really quick so we can move to the
Sure.
next presenter.
Sure, I'm done. I'm done. So that's
thank
it.
you so much. Thank
Let's
you
see.
so
So
much
these are
for your
podcasts,
presentation.
list of podcasts and so on. So general stuff. And this is the last one. Books, if you can find some time, at least if you have some time this year, read all these books. That's all. My presentation ends here. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Raju. That was some very important and helpful information. So thank you so much. So we will move.
I
right
think you need
along.
to spend, all you guys need to spend a lot of time on links, because I collated links from various sources.
Yes.
Forget about the presentation. You need to go after these links.
Yes, definitely. Everyone be sure to check out these links provided below. They're great resources in this industry. So again, in the interest of time, we will move right along and move to Dr. Anurag Mairal. Thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours. So Raju, if it's possible, can you stop sharing your screen? So
Sure, I will. Yeah, give me a second.
And Dr. Mairal, if you need to screen share, you should be able to do that now. You're on mute, Dr. Mairal.
Thank you, Namrata. How much time do we have?
You can go ahead and take 15 minutes.
15 minutes? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So why don't we, so I'll share something very quickly. Go through, let me just do this.
Or take as long as you need, 15 to 20 minutes, because it is a recorded session. I think it'll be helpful for students to go back and see as much information as possible. So however long you want to present is okay, but just between 15 to 20 minutes would be best.
Yeah, let me do something then in that case. I'm going to share a few slides, and then I would rather, like I said, I would like it to be a conversation rather than a presentation. So let me just pull up the slides. Okay. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And do you see them in presentation mode, or how do you see them?
Oh, not in presentation mode, but yeah, we can see it. Maybe you can just click on slideshow and then it will work.
Now let me just. Actually, I know what to do. I'll just share the screen on which they. There you go. I think that should work. Now you should be able to see it in the presentation mode, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay. All right. So I'll be quick. Quickly, my background. I grew up in India, engineering education, and I came here to the US for my PhD. I did a couple of postdoctoral fellowships, and then I was in the industry for almost a decade, 15, 12 years, and mostly in life sciences kind of roles, from R&D to product development to commercialization. And then I got my MBA from Berkeley, and that's when I switched to medical devices industry. Worked in the at J&J for a few years, and then Stanford recruited me to join their program called Bayer Center for Biodesign, which is a medical technology innovation program. Really teaches medical technology innovators and entrepreneurs this methodology that allows them to understand unmet needs in healthcare and come up with technology solutions for that. I've been involved with global health for the last 10 years, which is an area of work that is I'm very passionate about. We're really focusing on health of the underserved communities. Lastly, I do have a strategy consulting firm that I co-founded, and I've been an serial entrepreneur throughout my career. I've had 3 startups, and I'm on the 4th one now. I do invest in a few, and most importantly, I'm affiliated with Seva. I'm part of their team in the Bay Area. And it's such a pleasure to see Ajay ji and Jignesh ji and Raju ji here. Raju ji, we got to get you to the Seva Lead program as well. They'd love to hear what you have to say here. I think Raju ji did a great job of talking about the nitty-gritty of finding a job. There's so much wealth in his slides. I do urge all the students to actually go through that. There's a lot of how-to in those slides. What I'm going to talk about is I'm going to actually take it to 30,000 foot level, because I think it's important that you understand that you are all, in education today, you're students, but you're going to be out in the workforce soon, and you're going to have a 40, 50-year career ahead of you, depending on how long you choose to work. What I'm going to share here is going to scare you a little bit, but I promise you there's a happy ending. They say half the jobs that we see today, they'll be gone in 35 years. So all the jobs that you'll be applying for today, many of those jobs won't exist by the time you retire, okay? And automation is playing a key role there. It's impacting healthcare, which is where I'm very deeply involved. AI is already starting to become a decision support system for doctors. But as the book on the right says, that is it going to make doctors human again, potentially? Maybe not. Everybody says that coding is a really valuable skill to have, and software programming are the jobs at present. But it's clear that machines are starting to take some of those basic coding roles. So it's called end of code, and machines are basically coding. In many ways, the future that everybody is warning us about is already here. There was a report in 2018 that talked about many of these things. This was from the World Economic Forum. And here's what it showed. It showed that the types of jobs that would be done primarily by machines, they are at the bottom of this chart, information and data processing or anything of that sort. You could go through the list from bottom up, and you'll see that increasingly these jobs are going to be done by machines. But the kinds of jobs that are not going to be done by machines are up on top. Reasoning, decision making, communicating, interacting. I'm going to come to those themes later on. Those are the things that you gotta differentiate yourself from a machine. A machine can communicate, but it won't have the empathy, won't have the ability to communicate at a human level, right? And this is the last slide about the changes that are coming. My generation, Rajuji's generation, we held 5 jobs on average throughout our career. Our parents held 1 job all their life. They started with one particular job. They finished their 12th grade, they got a job, or in some cases they finished undergrad, but mostly 12th grade, and then they had the same job the rest of their lives. We held up to 5 jobs. You guys are gonna have 17 jobs. Does it mean that you need 17 degrees? Not really, right? It means that you gotta learn those skills that allow you to go from job to job in a pretty nimble and efficient way. Becoming experts in things that you end up doing. Of course, there'll be connectivity throughout your career, but those 70 jobs may have different flavors that you'll have to build in your background. And that starts now, that starts today. All right, so what can you do to prepare for the future? This is my last slide that I'm gonna show you. And Ajayji, you've seen this slide, Jimmy, you've seen it, I think, as well. So this is my doctrine for future leaders, and all of you are leaders. The fact that you're taking the time to do this on an evening to kind of shows that you're concerned about what you would like to do in the future. And here are the 6 things that I would recommend. First of all, be resilient. This is a tough time. This pandemic is a tough time. There will be many, many such tough times in your lives. Okay, when you graduate, the job market it would be a little bit cooler. I don't know when you're graduating. If you're graduating 2 or 3 years from now, maybe the job market would be much better. But if you graduate next year, job market would be a little bit cooler, right? That should not matter, because there'll be many situations throughout your careers that this would happen. So first advice I have for you is be resilient. What that means is bounce back from the any challenges that you encounter in your career. So stay with it, be focused, have the spirit of bouncing back. Second is develop empathy. Many of the jobs that I showed you in the 3 slides back that machines can't do, that they require empathy, they require human communication, they require understanding of humans at a level that machines really can't. I mean, they can, through the algorithm, try to explore what humans are thinking, but there is a certain human quality to understanding other humans that's going to be very hard for the machines to completely replicate. The conscious mind, for example, right? So develop that empathy, develop your ability to understand people, understand what they're thinking, what they want, what they're feeling. That's going to be a really powerful tool for you. Understand the world around you. Third one kind of builds upon you. Know the world that you're in. The slides that I showed, which shows 50% of jobs are going to be gone. There'll be 17 jobs that you'll hold in the future. Know where the world is going. Know all the stuff that Rajuji showed about the fields that are becoming more prominent. Where future jobs are potentially going to be, future problems are going to be, because ultimately what we're trying to do through our workforce, through our companies like Elon Musk's space exploration or the Hyperloop, he is really trying to solve problems. All of us are really trying to solve problems. Understand what those problems are for the future, and that's the next one. Find the problems that engage you. If you go after a job, I think it'll probably satisfy you for a little bit, but that satisfaction will be gone after a while. I would strongly recommend you to think about the things that really excite you, that you find challenging, the problems that seem to engage you. Let's say, the problem of, food security is really close to your heart. You've explored, and that's something that you want to do something about. Find careers in that direction, because, then you would continue to invest your energies in that field for a very, very long time to come, regardless of what your career trajectory there is. And what happens is that when you do that, your career trajectory is also really upbeat. Solutions are gonna come if you find problems today and that engage you and you focus on them, you'll find opportunities in those areas. The fifth one is really learn. 17 jobs that you're going to do, you're not going to do them with the same skills that you can have. From one role to the next one, you're going to make that shift because you would have learned certain things that are applicable to that new job. Learn all the time. Everything you see, you're learning right now on this session, in the session, for example. So learn tools of the future, whether it's artificial intelligence, it's 3D printing, whether it's robotics, whether it's new communication tools, whatever it is, learn those tools. And I really loved Rajuji's exhortation to you to really build your LinkedIn. Make sure that all of that actually gets represented in your LinkedIn. If you're doing a Coursera course, make sure it shows up. Talk about it, write it, give an example, tell a story. Ultimately, you're really trying to story, and that's the last point I want to make. Tell a story about yourself. Master the oldest tool in human history. The human society has gone in the last 70,000 years, 80,000 years from being lonely individual somewhere in Africa to the society of millions of people. And that has happened. The most important revolution that has happened, the three revolutions that happened, and you can read that in the Sapiens, book called Sapiens, where the third one, the most important revolution was the communication revolution, where the ability of humans to connect with other humans. So it's one of the oldest tools. I would urge you to really become a master of it. Learn to communicate about yourself, learn to communicate with your employers, with your colleagues, with the society at large, and empathy will help you do that. So with that, I'm going to pause. I think I did it in 10 minutes. Happy to take questions. I didn't talk about specific, examples of what you could do to network and things like that, because Rajuji covered that very well. But I'm happy to chat about that because I've done plenty of that in my own careers. I've had several 90-degree turns in my careers because I found the next thing that interested me. So I'm happy to share with you how you do that. But let's pause here and let's see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Myral. That was a great presentation. Some very valuable information. Does anyone have any questions to start off for either Rajuji or Dr. Myral? If not, I can go ahead and ask some questions that were prepared beforehand. So the first one is to discuss the near future as far as COVID-19 goes, and then what that means in the field of just employment and changing jobs, or the persistence of people being able to keep a job. And so maybe Dr. Myral, you can go ahead and start us off, and then Rajuji, you can add.
Sure, happy to. As you gathered from my background, I am in global health. COVID-19 is a pandemic that is very high on my mind and minds of other professors that I work with at Stanford. And one thing I'll tell you is this disease is not going anywhere. It will likely linger in our society for many, many years, but we will find tools to deal with it in due time, and it won't be as negatively impactful for us in the long term, we hope, as it is today. But it's a very significant disease, and we will not have vaccines deployed widely enough to go back to normal for at least 12 months. At least 12 months. It could be 18 months. That's 12 to 18 months is our best guess. What that means is that the workforce, the way employers hire, the impact on the economy, all of that is going to manifest itself over that duration. So if you're graduating within the next year, you'll have to work twice as hard to get the roles you want. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The second thing, which is a more longer term to keep in mind, is that I think a lot of things that we do as a society are going to become more permanent fixtures in our life. So remote working, our ability to interact with teams that are distributed across the world, our ability to communicate without being in person, using tools to become more productive, the work-life balance, a lot of those things are going to change. you'll have to become very nimble because these impacts that our economy has faced, our society has faced, it requires employers and employees to be very nimble. So you already were going to do 17 jobs in your life. You would have had to be nimble anyway. This is your rapid course in being nimble. So be very nimble. Learn to learn quickly. Learn to adapt quickly, and move on to solving next challenge that an employer may because employers themselves are going to go through those shifts. So next 3 to 5 years, you will see some significant impact in certain fields that will result from the impact that has happened during this pandemic. So learn to adjust and adapt, and be quick on your feet and quicker thinking. All of that is going to be quite important. Rajesh?
Yeah, firstly, thank you very much, Anuragji. You've added a lot of inputs during your presentation, also, say for this question. To give my perspective on how COVID is impacting is, leaving COVID aside, say all the engineers are, like students like you who are graduating, what is that you're going to be doing which is different from run of the mill, right? So you need to be doing something totally different, something that not other general run of the mill continue to do, right? So for example, say Anuragji talked about find problems that engage you. So taking one step beyond that would be, for example, take 200 companies that you're interested in, right? What problems are they solving today? Take Sumo Logic, or maybe even our own company. What problems are we trying to solve? So if you take Sumo Logic as an example, they're trying to solve a serious problem around log management, right? So are you interested in security? Are you interested in an area which is around DevOps and so on? Or maybe ServiceNow as an example. What problem are they trying to solve? So these are things that you need to pay very close attention to, and then do something that other say students are not doing today, right? So identify those problems and see whether that interests you, and what is that you need to make sure that you learn how you can come up with solutions for these problems, right? I know it is too big a problem for you to think about, but if you start doing a lot of research, you will get answers. Believe me, it has to be top down. It cannot be like just out of the blue throwing stones here and there, hoping that it's going to hit. It's not going to help. So you have to identify something that is going to work for you.
Thank you so much. That was really great and insightful. So the next question that we had was, how can students specifically coming out of university who may not have as many connections in the professional world go out and get jobs and get recruited, especially those who are maybe even international students who are just here and they've just studied and they're looking for jobs. Their network is maybe not as big and it's difficult for them to get connected to companies. So what advice do you have for them? Rajuji, you can go ahead and start us off, and then we can move to Dr. Myro.
Sure. So first and foremost thing is, you need to be much more proactive, much more, how do I put it? It's like, you have to just give up all your inhibitions and then just go after stuff that hustle, yeah. So you just have to go after things that you really, really want, right? It is very, very important. Additionally, how much of knowledge that you acquire in quick time that you can assimilate and focus, laser focus, and make sure that you get what you really want. For example, say, as I said, as an example about cloud engineering, right? If you like cloud technologies, you probably have to go top down, but you finally arrive at a place where you understand how to become a cloud engineer and then go up the ladder to become a cloud architect, right? In 5 years time, let us say you want to become a cloud architect. So you need to really plan all that properly, one step by step and step by step, and then network with only those people. Forget about all the other things. Believe me, if you start focusing on only on cloud technologies and say connections around cloud, you will land at least 100 people in the next say 3 months. I'm 100% sure about it. So that is how you need to connect and network. And the more and more you get exposed to, and don't hesitate, just reach out to people. I mean, just call them. Actually, if you can call them, or if you can just invite them for a say 10-minute Zoom call, whatever. Believe me, out of 10 or 20 people, you will certainly get one or two responses. But you need to be sincere. You need to be really genuine. If you do that, you will be able to get responses. And that is how you slowly network. And networking is hard. Believe me, it is super hard. Anurag should be able to, superimpose a lot more on that. So he has a lot of experience with that.
Yeah, I think networking is indeed hard. My suggestion is I think Rajuji said quite a few things in his presentation that relate to that. Be authentic, be honest, be sincere, actually be interested, and show that you have done your work. Networking, it does not mean you just get cards and you add them to your LinkedIn. That's not networking. Networking is actually connecting with them in ways that is impactful, so that the person that you're connecting with knows who you are, what your background, what is it that you're interested in, and that you are interested in what they have to offer. That's where it becomes a network. Otherwise, it becomes just a connection on a software. And by the way, if you create value, I'll give you an example. We are here on this Zoom call, Rajuji and I'm going to invite all of you to connect with me on LinkedIn. Clearly, I'm very interested in what you have to do, what you are doing, what you have to do, what you have to say, and in your future. So I've already given that indication. If you show in return that you are willing to take our inputs, our help in a sincere way, you have just built that connection. So that's any opportunity you get especially in this pandemic, it's hard to physically meet people, which is one of the primary ways you should network. You can do that through LinkedIn and other tools. When you get such an opportunity, use the technological tools to convey the same thing that you would convey in person, that you are sincere, that you have empathy, that you understand something about the other individual. Make that connection. The last point that I'm making in these list of 6 items, communication. That's really going to be key to that network.